Morning, guys. How you doing? Welcome back to the Spurs Talk Show. I'm Sean Butler. That's Bugsy Malone. This is episode 182 of Tottenham Walks, and it is windy. I hope you can hear me. I've put on this little microphone thing. I'm hoping that it's going to drown out the bubbles of the noise, but we'll find out in post-editing. Please do me a favour, guys. Smash the like button for me, smash the subscribe, smash the notification bell, and drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on today's video. I'm actually going to try and do two videos today because the first one is probably going to take up too much time to then get the second story in. So keep an eye out for the second video coming shortly after this. This one's transfer news, guys, and Tottenham have been linked today with a really interesting player. And it's come from a very credible source in The Athletic. You know, generally known for not clickbaits and, you know, tabloid headlines. Very respectable journalists. Don't get everything right, obviously, but generally speaking, don't make things up for the sake of it, and that they usually come with some sort of substance. And the player in question is a very credible player. So a credible player from a credible source, but I just wonder whether it will be an incredible story, possibly because of an incredible price. But we'll find out. The player in question is Mason Mount. And £70 million has been the quoted figure. Mason Mount, look, really interesting player. I don't want to say that he's incredibly similar to, but I would say he's not dissimilar to like a peak Dele Alli in the kind of box-to-box role, can handle himself defensively, but very much can get forward, be the creator, be the gap bridger between the midfield and the attack, chips in with goals and assists, and you know, is something that I think would be very useful at Tottenham. The player himself is probably going through a tough season right now with Chelsea. Morning, John. How you doing? I think he's only scored 3 goals and 2 assists this season, which pales in comparison to, that's in the Premier League, pales in comparison to the double-double that he did in, I think it was 11 goals and 10 assists last season. I think his struggles are obviously linked very much to the rebuild and the transition that Chelsea are going through. It's always disruptive when you have, you know, so many new players, faces, personalities, different languages, different playing styles come together in the dressing room and on the training pitch, as what Chelsea are going through. Plus, of course, you know, a new manager as well. And that will take time to figure itself out. But whether Chelsea still want Mason Mount around the system once they figured it out is another question. You ask Chelsea fans, a lot of them have actually fallen out of love with Mason Mount this year and wouldn't mind seeing the back of him. And of course, Todd Boehly allegedly has made a list of about 10 players from his bulging squad that he would like to let go of. Because he spent 500 million quid in the last 7-8 months. And, you know, FFP is a thing, can be a thing. We saw Everton getting charged with FFP breaches again last week. And I think Chelsea, whilst they remain confident that they've got it all figured out from an accounting perspective, where I would say they may struggle, and I've said this before on my channel on a few live streams as well, I think that Todd Boehly may have got very clever with the idea of signing young players on big money, on long contracts that can then be amortized down to kind of get around FFP, as long as you have the ability to sell some of the players that are not needed in the short term to keep that balance of the inflows versus the outflows of revenues coming in the correct ratios. Where I think he may find it a little bit more difficult, and I could be wrong about this, but I certainly use Tottenham as a good example, is the inability to really find good value in the secondary market, which is Europe. Most of the European leagues are bankrupt. Most teams within the European leagues are in the red. And you can count on the fingers of both hands how many teams in Europe can compete financially with a Premier League club on salaries and transfer fees. And most of those who can generally don't. They're better off financially because of their ability to generate a phenomenal amount of consistent youth that has huge talents and then move them on into the secondary market or the Premier League. Benfica is a wonderful example of that. But with Tottenham having £250 million of transfer valued players on loan and an inability to move any of them on, not just because Daniel Levy is holding out for top dollar, but because even if Daniel Levy was willing to take a haircut on those players, the players themselves are under no obligation to move away from Tottenham and give up 100% of their juicy salary that they have now to pick up 30% or 40% when they move to a permanent club elsewhere. They would much rather be on loan, picking up English wages whilst playing in the sun. And that's a problem for Tottenham. It's a problem for lots of clubs who have a poor track record of spending their transfer budgets. And we don't know how Chelsea's players will work out, but you would imagine that at least a few of them won't. And it will be interesting to see how they manipulate that situation and try and figure out the way to stay within FFP over the next 2 seasons. It's not going to happen. There's no problem for them now, but it might be in a couple of seasons' time as those numbers catch up with themselves. One of the ways of which, of course, they can overcome that is by liquidating players like Mason Mount, who do have desire and will be very popular among Premier League teams where there is more money to spend generally. Because of the English tax, because of the homegrown rule, etc., Mason Mount could be a perfect installation at Tottenham. He's not the only, or Tottenham are not the only club that would be interested in him. According to The Athletic, there's 3 main names that were up for him, or 4 if you included Arsenal, although Arsenal now have obviously turned their attentions to Declan Rice. And again, his fee would be massively inflated by the fact that he's English and the fact that the homegrown rules will help. So if you rule Arsenal out, then there's three teams left. Tottenham, who apparently have had an interest for well over a year and have been asked to keep tabs on the situation. Liverpool and Bayern Munich. Now I think Bayern Munich's interest may cool now because Thomas Tuchel is now in charge rather than Julian Nagelsmann, and Thomas Tuchel knows Mason Mount very well, obviously, from their time together, and according to The Athletic has said he doesn't see Mason Mount as a good enough fit or the necessary need for the German league and for what he's trying to achieve, and also why bother paying and competing with English clubs who are willing to pay more for the English tax when that doesn't benefit Bayern Munich. So we could probably rule out Bayern Munich, and then you have Liverpool and Tottenham as a potential shootout. Who gets that? Well, look, both teams are in massive transition. Both teams find themselves in various states of unrest with regards ownership and vision. Both sets of fans have a not insignificant amount of their fan base who want their owners out. You know, unfortunately, Tottenham don't have a manager right now, but hopefully by the summer, when this would transpire, we will. Tottenham don't really have a director of football. It's a dead man walking, you know, in every essence, a lame duck director of football. And Liverpool, however, are probably more settled in that regard. Certainly Jurgen Klopp doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon, although some Liverpool fans want him to go. So it's an interesting one. What I would say is that Tottenham have the London call, the London draw. You know, he doesn't have to move home. His family's probably settled in London. And so it's an interesting option. I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you want Mason Mount? Could you see him fitting in? Could you see him being the locksmith? And which manager would he work for? You know, I'm not entirely convinced he would have worked in a Conte system, but I think he'd work in a Nagelsmann system. I think he'd definitely work in a Poch 4-3-3. And, you know, the fact that maybe Harry Kane is moving on, if you could replace one big English name with another, then your homegrown numbers kind of stay the same, and that allows you then to go and find your other holes, your plugs that need to be, the other holes that need to be filled. You don't have to necessarily just keep one eye on the fact that you have to have an Englishman in there somewhere to keep the numbers level. It's an interesting one for me, and I would love to know your thoughts. Let me know, guys. Like, share and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one, and as always, bye bye.